Hi everyone, back to the more YouTube channel. It's Chris back with my rant stroke thought of the day. Typical. I go away for the day job for a couple of days and all hell breaks loose in Newcastle United, and I wasn't around to say anything about it. But I am now, so I'm going to talk about things that have gone on, mainly with our two centre forwards. Not particularly great reading, to be honest with you, and it highlights even further how badly mismanaged the striker situation has been by the football club. I'll get into that more in a second. But let's start with the talk about Alexander Isak. So our main man, our top striker, 20-odd goals last season, up there, probably alongside Erling Haaland as the second best centre forward in the Premier League. But the problem for us is Alexander Isak has almost reached a level where he's a lot more visible and noticeable to the rest of the world of football than he was prior. Now, Isak was linked to the likes of Arsenal and Barcelona and all these teams years gone by when he was at Sociedad, and then I think he had maybe an injury hit season and they all kind of switched off of him and slept on him. And then obviously Newcastle signed him for 63 million quid or whatever it may be, and he's been brilliant since he's come to Newcastle. The comparisons with Thierry Henry are always thrown out in superlatives by media pundits and everything else as well. And when that happens to a player, they do get that interest. And Newcastle, whether we want to hear this or not as Newcastle fans, Newcastle are not at that level yet in terms of what you would call a massive elite club. Listen, it's the biggest club for us. It's that team we call United. We all love them, and obviously when we were bought by the PIF, we all thought we were going to be one of those clubs. We're not quite there, thanks to the suffocation of PSR and FFP round your throat, choking the fucking life out of you, has really stopped the progress of us being that club as quick as we can be. But for me, the likes of Alexander Isak, Bruno Guimaraes, Anthony Gordon, who's just signed a new contract, which is amazing to see. That's good news. And amongst all of this, out of all those players, Alex Isak for me, I think, was always the one that I thought people would flirt around first. And it was always the one that would concern me. And the news that's come out that the contract talks aren't really happening, it's not progressing, and whether you believe it or not, there's some rumours that Isak is maybe lacking some confidence in where the project's going, and that's normal, that's natural for a player like Alexander Isak. He's not a homegrown lad. He's not he's not a British player. He's been brought in from overseas, and Alexander Isak has a thought in his mind where he wants to be in his career, and I'm pretty sure he wants to be a Champions League regular. He wants to be playing in World Cups, and when he's looking at the club not progressing in Europe, and that's a major thing here. We didn't get European football, and that sets players' agents out there scurrying around talking to the clubs, and it also puts seeds of doubt in the players' mind. Now, this could all be bullshit. This could all just be storming a teacup journalistic nonsense to push articles in the media and stuff like that, and it might be the case, but it wouldn't surprise me if Alex is wondering what's going on and where the club is going. There was obviously uncertainty about the manager in the summer as well. So what Newcastle need to sort this whole Alexander Isak thing out, for starters, Isak needs to start scoring again, because he ain't been great for us this season. So it's okay saying you want to play for Barcelona and Real Madrid, and you're the second best striker to Haaland, but you might actually want to start hitting the target, because he had more chances in that game than a fucking politician has, in terms of through on goal, and he fluffed every single fucking one of them. So he needs to start putting them away. Yes, he was rusty, we can forgive him a little bit for that. 3 really big games coming up, a double-header with Chelsea and Arsenal. If that's the level that Alexander Isak sees himself at, then he needs to step up in them games and show the world what he can do, for us to obviously give him a contract that he feels is worthy of his time. But also, if he wants to go and be that elite player, that he's got to show he can do in the big games. But it is a little bit of a worry. I think the last few transfer windows have been disastrous for the football club, and I think it wouldn't surprise me if people like Alexander Isak are starting to have doubts, and I'm not going to lambast Isak for that. Obviously I want him at the club, and I think he's a great player when he's fit and he's firing. He hasn't been fit and firing really for a while, and that's an issue that the club has in terms of the management and the squad depth of striker as well. You're getting into Callum Wilson in a second, but yeah, the Isak thing is a concern, but he just needs to get his head down, score goals, do what he needs to do for the club and for himself, and hopefully Newcastle can get Isak tied down to a new contract like Anthony Gordon before him as well, and Bruno is obviously had his done as well. So hopefully we can tie these players down. But if we don't qualify for Europe at the end of the season, which I think could be an issue, the way we're playing, if we don't sort our shit out sharpish, these players will all be looking around for moves to Champions League clubs, believe it, because it will be the case. Now moving on to the perennial knacked broken player that is Callum Wilson. The news came out that another setback for Callum Wilson. He's had a tightness in his muscle, so he's probably going to miss the next 3 games. Now, This is getting beyond a fucking joke for Callum Wilson. It really, really is. And I love Callum Wilson as a player, as a bloke. I think he's charismatic as fuck. He's hilarious. But as a player, he is just not available. He's not available whatsoever. And this is every season now. This isn't just a one-off. It's every season. He's not available for massive chunks of the season. And the club have really fucked this up. I've done a video on this before. Loads of content creators have done videos on this before. They have not signed enough centre-forward cover for either of these players, Isak and Wilson, who both have injury problems here. But Wilson is in his early 30s now. His body is not quite what it used to be, despite looking like a fucking Greek god, to be fair to him. I wish I looked like Callum Wilson, but that's beside the by. You know, as a player, it cannot cope with the rigours of Premier League football. It just can't. He can't do it. He's getting injury after injury after injury, and the length of time he's out, the recovery time is way too long. When a player starts becoming like this, retirement is closer than returning on the pitches. It really, really is. You look at the likes of Jack Wilshere and players like that. This is exactly what happened to them. Injury after injury after injury. He's out again, he's out again, he's out again. And then people start forgetting the quality of the player. His legacy starts getting tarnished at the club. And, you know, Wilson's been a great goal scorer, 1 and 2 for Newcastle when he's been fit. He's right up there. He's the second highest Premier League goal scorer behind Shearer, who's obviously way ahead of him. But now people are starting to get pissed off with Callum's lack of availability. We should have sold this player years ago, and he should have been somebody else's injury problem. But he's still at the club. It's a combination for me. The club that sleep behind the wheel, the whole fucking around upstairs with Dan Ashworth and Mitchell. But mainly, I think the reason that Callum Wilson has stayed at this football club is Eddie Howe. And Eddie Howe's trust of the player and his loyalty to the player. And I understand it. They've been together a long time. They both know each other very, very well. And Callum has done good things for Eddie Howe. But I think Eddie Howe's over loyalty to Callum Wilson has put us in a position where he's still at the football club and he's not fucking available for selection. And then you look at the Will Asula thing, he won't play him. Eddie's arrogance of this player needs time to bed in, and you know, I say arrogance, it's clever because he wants the player to be fully ready for the Premier League, and I admire it in a way. But right at this current moment, we don't have that luxury, Eddie, to select a player when you think that he's good and ready. You're going to have to just chuck the lad in and see how he copes, sink or swim, you know, and that's what you got to do. You know, you look at all the Premier League managers who did it previously with some players, you know, Francis Jeffers, Wayne Rooney, you know, they threw them in at young ages and they did really, really well. I'm not saying Asola's going to be anywhere near as good as them two. Fuck, maybe he's half the player Wayne Rooney is, we'll be all right. But Eddie does not have this infinite level of time to keep Will Asula back when Callum Wilson can't play, when Isak is injured or out of form. He has to use that player. He has to change things around. He has not got that luxury. Anthony Gordon through the middle does not fucking work. We've seen that. That header alone against Brighton should show he's not a centre forward. And I do think the manager is mismanaging this situation with the centre forward, and he needs to sort this shit out for me. Big time. It's disappointing that we're in this position. January, get a centre forward for fuck's sake. They're talking about a right winger, you know, and Wemble's been linked, and I think he's a great player. We should have signed him in the summer. 50 million quid, I think Brentford want from. Just fucking pay it and get it done. We've kept way too much deadwood at this football club. You still see the likes of Murphy and Longstaff and players like that. As canny as they are, as hard-working as they are, they've not got the quality to get Newcastle into that top four again, which I think is where we need to be to keep a hold of those players that, like, start the video, Alexander Isak, for example. Then it's a real concern. This is a difficult season ahead of us. We don't know which way it's going to go, but, you know, let us know in the comments below what you think. You know, as the club failed miserably with the striker department, are you worried about Alexander Isak? What's your thoughts on Callum Wilson? We always like to hear from you. Keep it evermore, guys. Like and subscribe if you like this type of stuff. We'll be back with a post-match for the Chelsea game, and the Chelsea preview will be out hopefully in the next day or so for you. Keep it evermore. Until then, guys, have a belter, and we'll see you later.
Newcastle United